This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Welcome, everyone, to the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and together we'll embark on a weekly journey connecting with extraordinary hikers from all corners of the U.S. and beyond. Throughout these spring months, we've had the privilege of conversing with remarkable individuals. Their experiences and adventures will leave you yearning to hit the trails. In this week's episode, we're chatting with an amazing individual. Her name is Krista, and you can follow her on Instagram at FOERTSCHKR. Krista shares with us some of her favorite trails and regions that she's been able to explore, including Montana and the Pacific Northwest, as well as several Canadian national parks. She also shares with us 2 business ventures that she's been able to incorporate her love for the outdoors and nature. We also learn about her 4-legged queen, Yuuki. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Krista. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I have a really exciting guest with me today. Her name is Krista from Colorado. She's going to be talking about some of her adventures both in the United States and abroad. Krista, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. For listeners that haven't had a chance to follow you on Instagram or on social media, can you share a little bit about yourself and how you got started hiking?
Hi, Ivan. Thanks so much for having me on the show today. It's an honor to be here with you. I'm originally from North Dakota. I grew up on a farm in the very southeast part of the state. And as a child, I always was attracted to and drawn to being outside and the natural world. So I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be in a place like the Pacific Northwest or Montana or Colorado that could really give me these opportunities to engage in being really immersed in nature and the natural world and allowing me to explore. I have a very childlike curiosity. So after I graduated from higher education in 2011, I had the opportunity to move to Missoula, Montana. And I will never forget my first hike. I was just so excited to be there. And I very ill prepared. I didn't have a pack. I didn't have water. I didn't have a knife. I didn't have bear spray. I don't even know if I was wearing hiking shoes. I ended up encountering a black bear, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences I had been involved with up to that point. And in that moment, I knew I finally made it somewhere that really could quench that thirst and that gave me that opportunity to immerse myself in the strong desire that I had to explore the natural world. And so for me, that's really when hiking became heavily instilled into my life, and it's a major identity of who I am. And in 2013, I moved to Fort Collins, Colorado, and that is currently where I reside.
And I gotta ask, because you're our first guest that was originally from the Dakotas. The more I talk to people, the more I hear like that's one of the most underrated regions in the country as far as like just outdoor experiences that are different from like the western mountainous regions. But like I've heard really good things about both South Dakota and North Dakota. I know that comparing it to like Montana, which is like a mecca for anything outdoors, is hard. But what were some of your favorite outdoor places in North Dakota?
Growing up, we did go camping a lot as a family, but it was mostly in state parks. And it was in South Dakota instead of North Dakota. The big offering that is in that region is water sports. I would say lakes. I grew up really close to the Minnesota border. So we often spent a lot of time recreating on more water regions and lake sports and recreating in that regard.
And, coming from North Dakota and then going to Montana, how was your experiences there in Montana? And what were some of your favorite places in and around that state?
Montana is still home to me. It was an awakening for me. Like I said, I've always been really drawn to nature. As a kid, I used to run off into the trees. I grew up on a farm, and that's where I would spend a lot of my time. So being able to engage in that mecca, if you will, of the plethora of offerings that Montana has to offer. And I was in Missoula. So really, you're in a valley surrounded by mountains, 360 degrees. And it was a playground at your fingertips. It was absolutely incredible. A few of the areas that stand out there are obviously Glacier National Park, which is only a couple hours north of Missoula. And that was really my first engagement with national parks. Granted, I was in my mid-20s, so I was maybe a late bloomer to getting into the national park scene. But talk about starting off on the right foot with it being Glacier. It's one of the most beautiful parks. Still, I consider it one of the top that I've been to. And the region in Missoula specifically is the Rattlesnake Valley. It's just right outside of town and plethora of trails. I used to mountain bike very heavily. It was great. It was more of your rolling lands and trail systems with lots of coverage, tons of vegetation. You're right next to a stream. As you know, Missoula is known for the 3 rivers that run through it. So it had a little bit of everything.
Now, Krista, you are now in another place that's world renowned for their outdoor experiences, and that's Colorado. How would you describe the hiking scene and local trails in and around your local neck of the woods now?
Yeah, Colorado is obviously, like you said, well known. Everybody, when they think of Colorado, they think of the Rockies. But really, Colorado is mostly a desert. 3/4 of the state is fairly flat, if you will. But where I am, I'm along the Front Range in Fort Collins. And so there's easy access to a lot of trail systems here. It is different from Montana in the sense that the trails are a little more exposed and open, more of kind of that desert scenery, more rocks, sand wash, makes mountain biking a little more difficult, but it's just kind of a different environment that you get to experience. And then you obviously have the very, very high peaks and high summits, beautiful all around.
Yeah, and I got to ask you, because I think from your feed, I saw that you've crossed off a few of those 13ers and 14ers. Have you had any memorable summits on any of those peaks that are known, for their 14,000 plus feet in elevation?
You are correct. I have done a handful, and to be honest, they're not my favorites. I'm not one of those who has to beg the 14ers, as they like to say, but I have had some really beautiful experiences. One that stands out for me is Mount Princeton, which is down by Salida, BV area. And that region, that county actually has the most 14ers of any county in the state. I think the reason I am so drawn to that region is because it does remind me of Missoula. There's the valley, and then you're surrounded by the mountain peaks. And that 14er, I started at 2 a.m. and it was a pretty intense off-road to get to kind of a midway point to start the hike. And I started at 2 a.m., like I said, and it was foggy. It was bogged down. Couldn't really see more than 20 feet in front of you. I was having a hard time keeping track of the trail. You're on the rock scree. And truthfully, it felt as if you could hear and feel the mountain shifting underneath you. It was one of the more terrifying hikes that I've done, just not knowing if I was on the route and being in that sort of environment. It really was humbling, but getting to the saddle and watching the sunrise over the clouds was absolutely incredible. And getting to the summit, I was the only one up there, and it was the 4th of July. So I got to kind of celebrate with a great morning start. So that was definitely a memorable one for me.
Yeah, I made it to Salida, I think, last year. And they have a specific name for all the peaks that are named after universities. What's the name of them?
Oh, the collegiate peaks.
Collegiate Peaks. There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Salida is just a great little town to explore, and just the views there are just unbelievable. With us now finally getting into the spring month, Krista, are there any spring hikes that you're looking forward to or that you've already done?
Yeah, I enjoy heading up because it's easily accessible for me. The Poudre Canyon, while there's still plenty of snow up there, but Poudre River starts to really, really roar in the spring, and it's still a little bit lower elevation unless you start to get up towards like Cameron Pass, where there's multiple trails that you can hit. Do like Pingree Park region that tends to have snow melt a little bit quicker in the season compared to upper elevation. And there's plenty of trails that you can get to. I also enjoy even further north of town, there's some more prairie regions that you can hit. I used to mountain bike those a lot, and it's nice to get up there before summer months and end of summer months when there tends to be a bit more friendly critters that are crawling around.
You know, one place that you've showcased on your Instagram feed, and it's a place that I'm fascinated with in Southwest Colorado near Telluride. It's called Ouray. Is that how you pronounce it?
Some people call it Ouray. A lot of people call it Ouray.
Just a beautiful little mountain town that just has some epic adventures that you can do, not just hiking, but a little bit of everything. What was your experience like visiting that small little mountain town?
Yeah, I've been to Ouray a couple times now at this point. It's actually somewhere I've been wanting to get back to. There's a pass up by Telluride Ouray that I'm looking to hit. I have gone up Imogene Pass in my Forerunner. I'm an off-roader as well, so that's always a fun experience. The town itself is it's a very cute, quaint mountain town. It is touristy, but beautiful valley. And then, it's known as the Switzerland of America. So you can only imagine the mountain peaks that you have access to around that region.
And I think the mountain passes there that you can do by 4-buying are some of the toughest, if not the toughest in the United States, right? Like people, if they want to do some of these mountain passes, should really be comfortable being on the edge, because from some of the videos I've seen, like there's not much wiggle room on the road, if any.
Yeah, there's not. That trip was actually with a couple friends. Our intention for that trip was to summit Mount Snuffle, which is another 14er, and beautiful views of the valley below. And we only went up the pass about halfway in my truck, and we were just looking for a place to camp at that point. But one of my friends was so terrified in the passenger seat. She was basically asking me to stop to get out, but we were next to a cliff ledge. So I told her, I don't think that would be a great idea at this point.
You've mentioned it already, but Colorado, it's known for the Rockies, but the rest of the state is very unique. Are there any other favorite destinations within the state that you like to visit?
There's so much to do here. It's hard to pick. We've got everything from Rocky Mountain National Park, which is very close to me by Estes. And then you have the Great Sand Dunes, kind of on the southern end of the state, which are just an unreal landscape. It's hard to fathom as you're driving up that this is actually here in the Americas and in Colorado. And then you have the mountain ranges in the back that they make the sand dunes look small, but when you approach the sand dunes, they are some of the tallest in the US. As far as other places nearby me, the Rewas, which is up Cameron Pass, another favorite region of mine to explore. Unfortunately, with the fires in 2020, that area was pretty wiped out. It's really disheartening to see, but it's coming back. And as nature does, hopefully it will flourish even more. The other areas I like to explore are going even further west, would be the Zirkle Wilderness, which gets closer to the north end of like Steamboat. Yeah, lots of water, lakes, good vegetation, lots of trees. I'm very attracted to the vegetation, which is why I'm drawn to the Pacific Northwest specifically. And then you also have south of here, like the Indian Peaks Wilderness. Again, great peaks, great trail system, not far from here, miles and miles of hiking.
When it comes to national park systems, you and me are the same. I didn't really start my national park list until I was in my mid-20s, and I'm slowly crossing them off. And you've been crossing them off as well, and you've hit some really unique ones over the last few years. What's been some of your more memorable national park visits? And then are there any that you would consider underrated, or maybe they just exceeded your expectations?
I think for me, we spoke already to Glacier National Park. That just has a place in my heart. I was back there this past summer. I actually did a road trip up towards Canada and explored the Canadian Rockies. And on the way back down, I went through Glacier National Park. Incredible landscape. It's otherworldly. And it was just kind of gave me that first stepping stone into my hiking experience when I lived in Montana. The other one that really stands out to me is the Redwoods. The Redwoods for me happened in 2020, right as the pandemic was happening. My friends were warning me. They were telling me not to go. I shouldn't be doing this. I was kind of going through a moment in my life, some hardships. And I told them, look, I'm going to be fine. I have my tent and I have a rental car. And the vastness of these trees, you can't put words to it. And the feelings and emotions that they evoke and just the age and maturity and what they bring to you is something that, again, you can't really explain it. And I was there as everything, like I said, was happening. And so I think that was really when the national park journey kind of came to fruition for me. It was kind of the start and the fire that was lit that really evoked this path that I decided to embark on.
Yeah, and what a path you've gone on so far. One of that you got a chance to visit that's very unique compared to any other national park in the mainland is Virgin Islands National Park, because the majority of it's underwater and you got to either snorkel or scuba. What was your experience like visiting St. John and the Virgin Islands National Park?
It was great. I had actually been to the islands when I was in high school. I had an opportunity. I was able to get down there, but I don't really remember it much. We were on, I think, St. Thomas, so we didn't make it to St. John, but it was wonderful. You know, it's just, again, it's a different terrain. It's a different environment, different atmosphere. But that was a recent trip actually last year. And we started on one end of the islands on, I think it was the north end of the island. And we actually hiked up and over the entire island and snorkeled and then hiked back and got caught in a rainstorm. Obviously, the weather is great, so the rain doesn't matter. And yeah, it was beautiful. Again, the vegetation is unreal. You can just feel it in your lungs, the amount of oxygen that's being supplied to you. And then you get to hop in the ocean and experience a different world. And I do scuba dive. So I got to partake in that while I was down there. And we went diving where Treasure Island was filmed.
Oh, okay.
Which was really unique. Yeah, it was kind of like a private dive almost. And then for the second dive that day, they took us out to the middle of the ocean and looked around and I was like, okay, we're getting in here. All right.
Yeah, for me as an adult, Virgin Islands National Park was the second national park I visited once I really started keeping track of it. And I'd love to make it back there because it's just a unique place. I got to ask you because for me personally, Banff National Park is still probably the top national park I've ever visited in the world. What was your experience like visiting not just Banff, but you made it all the way up to Jasper as well?
Yeah, when I was in Canada, I actually hit 7 of the national parks there.
Oh, wow.
So I was at Waterton, Yoho, Kootenay, Glacier of Canada, Revelstoke, Banff, and I just touched Jasper. Again, it was a road trip. It was a solo road trip. And by the time I hit Jasper, I was pretty worn out. So we crossed into Jasper, hiked a little bit, and then I had to trek back home. But for me, Glacier National Park of Canada was amazing. The area that I hiked into, the pioneer who kind of discovered that region deemed it as 7 Switzerlands in one, and he was not wrong. I summited the hike and got to the top. I'm an early morning hiker. I love the sunrises. I love being the first one up, and stood on this very, very teeny tiny ledge, and you've got a straight cliff on one side, straight cliff on the other side. If you misstep, that's probably goodbye to you. And you spin around 360 degrees and mountain, just rugged mountain peaks, snow capped. And I think there were 7 glaciers in that region that you could see. And so then you have the waterfall that's coming off of the glaciers and the valleys, the green valleys, just lush vegetation from the glacier runoff. It was one of the most surreal things I think I've seen.
Is Glacier National Park of Canada just on the other side of the U.S. counterpart?
So if you head north of Waterton and even north of Banff, and it's like west of Banff, so you start heading west.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. You'll hit Glacier National National Park of Canada, and then it's Revelstoke.
Okay, I'm going to have to add that to the list next time I make it up to Canada.
I highly recommend it.
And talking about epic road trips, Krista, I feel like you have done a lot of just amazing road trips, put some epic miles on the rig. And back in 2022, you did one that covered 3,477 miles. And it was kind of like a Pacific Northwest focused road trip because you hit up Washington, Oregon, but also Montana, Wyoming, Utah. What was your experience like?
It was great. I'm an avid road tripper. I enjoy exploring the countryside. I love seeing it and being out there and having that freedom. And that came to fruition because 2022 was actually when I opened my business. And so I opened the doors, and that was kind of the gateway into this journey into my life, if you will. And what better way to do it than head towards the Pacific Northwest. Covered a ton of terrain, as you said, started off through Utah, then went up into Idaho and hit the Sawtooth Mountain Range. Again, another epic region. Idaho is very, very beautiful in its own right. And then went over into Oregon, which I would love to live in Oregon someday. I'm just going to put that out there. Hit the entire state from east to west, and incredible and surprising. I didn't expect Eastern Oregon to look the way that it did and to feel the way that it did. I was driving through a canyon for probably a couple hours. I wasn't expecting that on the eastern side of the state. And then you get into more of your rolling grasslands and hillsides. And then you kind of get into like your high desert region, into Bend. And then the next thing you know, you're traveling through kind of what feels like a jungle, and then you hit the coast. There's so many environments and terrains that it has to offer. It's pretty incredible for a specific region. And then from there, went up north and hit Olympic National Park. And I was just a stone throw away from Canada at that point. Came back down and went into North Cascades, hiked around there for a little bit, and then down into Montana and back through Wyoming and back to Colorado. Covered a lot of miles, a lot of ground, both on the wheels and the feet.
How many days did that trip take you?
I did it in 2 weeks and wish I had a few more extra days. There were a few days where I was really dragging behind the wheel.
Oh man, that
and
just sounds amazing.
Unfortunately, I did cut out a few hikes. Just the body was getting tired. I was tired, but that's okay. We can't do everything in one trip.
Yeah, gives you a chance to come back and do a sequel.
For sure.
Krista, we've talked about national parks, and I'm interested, are you keeping track of the number that you're crossing off the list? And if so, how many have you been able to visit so far?
I am. Yeah, I think at this point, it's either 35 or 36.
Okay, so you're over half now.
Yeah, I actually, like I said, this really didn't come to fruition. I mean, 2020, it was kind of one of those things where in the back of my mind, I told myself this is something I want to do, and I want to do it before I get older, if you will. And then my most recent birthday, just this past November, I said out loud that I'm going to hit the national parks before I turn 40. Granted, I don't have very many years left before I hit 40, so this is going to put a little fire underneath the backside of me.
I like that challenge that you set for yourself. For 2024, Krista, are there any national parks that you have on the travel list?
I do, actually. I'm currently in school, and I'll be finishing early May. And I intend to take, I'm thinking close to 3 weeks. And this is the longest amount of time I've ever taken from work or away from anything, but I'm very excited about it. And I'm on a road trip out east. And so I'll be hitting, I think on the map, 8 different national parks on this little route that I have planned out.
Oh, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm very excited. And again, I'll be in my truck, and I've built a bed system and a drawer system in the back, which is probably the best thing I've ever built. The route will include into Indiana, hitting Indiana Dunes, Ohio, West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Kentucky, and then back through Illinois and back into Colorado.
Is that going to be your first time traveling to the East Coast via car?
Yeah, it will be.
I'm looking forward to seeing how the trip goes and seeing it on your feed.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be great time of year and great weather. It won't be midsummer, humid, springtime. So I'm looking forward to it.
Now, we've been talking a lot about some of your, domestic trips here in the United States and in North America with Canada, but you've also have done some memorable international trips, including a recent one from Europe. How was the trip you just came back from? And what are some of your other favorite international trips in recent years that had a little bit of an outdoor focus?
It was good. The trip was good. Thank you for asking. It was very quick for the amount of travel that I did. I had limited amount of time, but I was able to get into the Pyrenees Mountains in Spain and France. And again, the countryside, just imagine your rolling green Ireland looking countryside with cobblestone. And then you have the very majestic and aggressive, rugged Pyrenees Mountains in the background. Absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, they had been dumped with snow the week prior, so it deterred a few of the hiking plans, but it was still great to get out there and explore what we could explore.
I know you've made it to Spain and Ireland. How was your trips to Ireland? Because I hear like Ireland, especially on the coast, has some beautiful hikes and just gorgeous views.
Ireland was, again, it was beautiful. I got to see the Cliffs of Moher on my 30th birthday. Unfortunately, it was really foggy and overcast, so I didn't get to see them with the expectation that I had or the views that I specifically wanted to see, but it was still great. I didn't get to do as much hiking on that trip. I had someone else with me, just capabilities were different, but along the coast there, I could foresee just being able to walk for miles and miles and have the ocean just crashing against those cliff walls, and the greenery is, again, it's refreshing.
Now, Krista, we like to do a segment here on the podcast where we do a deep dive into our guest's Instagram and ask them about a specific post or maybe a location or region that captured our attention. And for yours, like, I instantly gravitated towards it once I saw it. But it's the picture that you took of Crystal Mill. It's just a stunning photo of this old mill right next to a raging river, which looked like it had a little bit of a waterfall. What can you tell us about Crystal Mill and your experiences visiting it?
Crystal Mill is actually one of the most photographed sites in Colorado. So it's a very popular area, and it's located just right next to Marble, Colorado. And the mill was built in around like 1890, and just off, like you said, it's right next to the Crystal River itself. It's accessible. You can hike it, or if you have a 4-wheel drive vehicle, you can drive it. It's a little sketchy at parts, but it's manageable. And it was originally used as a water turbine to drive an air compressor, which then in turn was used to power other machineries and tools.
Oh, wow. Is the actual structure itself protected, or can you get close to it or up
You
against
can
it?
get fairly close to it. It's kind of become a touristy thing now where you have to pay in order to get past the rope, and they've got everything kind of closed off so that way it is protected, although it puts a little damper on people who want to go explore it a little bit further. But yeah, you can get fairly close to it, like on the other side of the river. I'm sure you can sneak around and find a way to get to the other side, but
Well, yeah, stunning photo, and I can see why it's a popular touristy destination just because it looks like something that you would see in the Swiss Alps or somewhere in Europe. It just kind of seems very rustic, and I'm gonna have to add it to the list as well for my next Colorado trip. Another individual that comes up on your feed a lot and has joined you on some of these epic road trips is your 4-legged hiking partner by the name of Yuuki, who just is cutest dog I've seen. Can you share a little bit about Yuuki and how she does on the trails?
yeah, well, thank you, Ivan. I would agree with you that she's the cutest, but I may be biased here. Yuki is, like you said, she is my 4-legged little friend. She's actually my best friend. And the irony behind all of this is Yuki hates hiking. My friend, she's known to be a princess. I tend to call her a queen. She's a 16-pound little Shiba Inu with one eye, and she has an attitude and personality like no other, but I love her dearly. And she, has no choice, but she's right there with me on all these adventures. And she typically hangs out in the truck while I go hike, because like I said, she does not like hiking, so I'm not going to force that upon her, but she's there waiting for me when I get back. And it's a great thing to come back to her and the vehicle and have them there for me.
And a lot of the four-legged creatures that our guests have had, they instantly know when our guest either gets their backpack or their keys that it's time to hit the road. Does she know, like, when you're getting ready to go on one of these road trips? Like, does she sense it and get excited as well?
Yes, she knows, but I wouldn't say it's excited. I would say she scoffs at me and says, "Oh no, here we go." My basement is filled with all of my outdoor gear and supplies. And so when I'm down there packing things, she'll come down and she will literally scoff at me and then turn around and go upstairs because she knows what's happening.
Oh, that's too funny.
But she doesn't ever want to be left behind. So she knows when I start loading up the truck, she's sitting right there waiting to get thrown into her bed and her section in the back end. So
Oh, that's awesome. Now, Krista, outside of the outdoors, you're also a health and wellness coach and an artist. Can you share a little bit about Root Wellness and some of your favorite pieces that you've made from the reclaimed and recycled wood that you use?
I founded Roots Wellness in 2022, and health and wellness has always been an integral part of my life and who I am just as an identity as well. And the principles behind Roots Wellness is of working with clients and creating a solid foundation for the various areas and dimensions of an individual's life. I take a very holistic and methodical and integrative approach, knowing that each person is unique in their own journey, also known as bioindividuality. And there are many dimensions that make up the human experience, and each of those areas can contribute to the betterment of their health and or create an imbalance or disruption. And so really, I work with people in a collaborative way to explore motivation to change, developing goals and action steps that lead to more fulfilling, rewarding, and healthier lifestyle in accordance to their values. And a big part of that actually is incorporating some ecotherapy practice. And for individuals who are unfamiliar with that, really, just as it sounds, it's a therapeutic practice that involves outdoor activities in nature.
If folks are interested in those services, are you primarily doing just in-person consultations, or can you do a virtual one and develop one of these plans for an individual that lives outside of Colorado?
Yeah, I do hybrid. I do meet with people in person, but I do a lot of online work with individuals as well.
And if folks are interested in checking out your services with Root Wellness, is there a website they can visit?
For sure, yeah. It's rootswellnessllc.com.
Perfect. Yeah, well, be sure to include that in the episode show notes so people can check Root Wellness out. And then the other project that you work on is making these beautiful pieces out of reclaimed and recycled wood. How did that journey come about?
I would say ever since I was young, I like to tinker. I work with my hands. I like to create things. I think it's a very artistic way to express an individual's identity and creativity. And I just remember being young and being in my dad's shop, and I would grab tools and I would just start working with things. But it really became very heavily involved in my life. I would say when I moved to Colorado, almost every piece of furniture in my house I've made. Probably my favorite piece is my desk. And this piece was created from 4 pieces of barnwood from one of my grandparents' old barns that had collapsed. And to the normal human eye, most people would say that those pieces were junk and probably toss them out. But I just started working with them. I sanded them down and put the pieces together and created one of the most beautiful pieces that I've done. And it was one of my first journeys with epoxy work as well. And so just the wood, the knots, the defects that are in it, but it really showcases just the beauty in that wood and bringing it to fruition and creating something new out of something that most people probably would have just tossed to the side.
And you have also a dedicated Instagram for all the pieces and the work that you do, right?
I do. Yep.
Can you share with us the Instagram handle?
Yeah. So that one is FirchKR_aesthete arts.
Now, these last couple of questions, Krista, are questions we like to ask all our guests. There are a couple fun ones before we get into the this or that questions, but I feel like with a lot of day hikers, they tend to have a regular summit routine or maybe an end of the hike routine that they do on a regular basis. For some, it's just packing a favorite snack or drink. For others, it's a moment of zen. And then for a few, it's that favorite meal afterwards. Is there a regular custom or routine that you do when you reach your destination or maybe when you make it back out?
There's a couple things that come to mind, and one of them may not be PG, but the other one is I love silence. And that is something that nature offers, is that seclusion and isolation. And I really appreciate that space that it gives to me during those moments. So I do take a handful of minutes and I just sit and listen and engage all my senses to really bring me to that present moment and take me away from the hustle and bustle that is the human life. The other one that I'll mention, kind of embarrassingly, but I'll say it anyway, is I do like to hike to lakes a lot. And so, yeah, I'll get down to my birthday suit and you'll find me jumping into that water, even if it's in the middle of winter.
Oh, no way. You do a polar bear plunge?
Yeah.
That's badass, Krista. Nothing to be embarrassed about. I love jumping into cold lakes, but I've never done it in my birthday suit, especially in the middle of winter. So big props to you.
It's very freeing and liberating. I will say that.
Now, when it comes to your pack list, I'm interested in hearing two different versions for you. So when you're out hiking, is there a luxury item that you take with you that falls outside of the essentials list? For some, it's a camera and tripod. For others, it's, a special snack. And then on the flip side, when it comes to your road trip pack list, is there a luxury item that you like to take that, isn't necessarily a necessity, but it's something that gives you or brings you comfort on the road?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, I'm not sure it's much of a luxury item because it's food, but I'm a foodie and I love food. So I enjoy packing. I make homemade mushroom jerky.
Ooh.
And then I also there's a company that makes them as well, but they're called carrot chews. So they're made from carrots, but they literally taste like fruit snacks. So those are my two food items that I like to really load up on when I'm on the trails. And the other thing would probably be my camera and the GoPro. I like to make and create a lot of videos and take pictures. So I do tend to haul those two heavier items with me. And then as far as road trips, I would say in general, if you just saw the inside of my truck, you would say it's very luxurious. The whole back end, I've built a whole bed system with a drawer that's a camping kitchen, and I've got 4 inches of a sleeping pad back there. So I would say it's a great thing to come back to after being out hiking all day and exploring and tired from being on the road. Not that I, don't mind throwing up a tent, but when you're exhausted, it's a very, very comfortable to crawl into that bed at night.
Now, Krista, well, actually, let me go back because I have seen mushroom jerky here locally and I've been intrigued to buy it, but does it taste like mushrooms? Because sometimes mushrooms can have an earthy taste, or because some of them come seasoned, you don't really get that earthy tone.
So I like raw mushrooms, but I don't like cooked mushrooms. I think it's a texture thing because they get kind of slimy. But mushroom jerky, it's seasoned. I mean, there's probably 15 different seasonings that I throw into mine. And then I also do a little bit of pineapple juice to sweeten it slightly with like some red pepper flakes. So you've got the sweet and spicy and salty going on. And then you dehydrate it. And so it has a little bit of the chewy texture to it, but truthfully, it doesn't taste like mushrooms at all. It's a great salty snack to have out on the trail.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to have to pick some up next time I'm at the store because I keep seeing it and I'm always intrigued by it. But yeah, I'm going to have to pick it up next time. We've talked about, your epic road trip to the East Coast that's coming up. Are there any other hiking or travel goals that you have for 2024?
I do, and this will be the first time I am going to publicly announce this because this is a pretty big endeavor that I am putting on my plate, but I am intending to, hopefully the end of this year, early next year, to be down in Chile, Patagonia for roughly a 10-day backpacking trip. I am very excited for this opportunity opportunity, there is a juxtaposition of a lot of emotions regarding this trip. There's a lot of fear and anxiety and excitement and exhilaration, mostly because in July of 2021, unfortunately, I was struck on the left side of my body by an F-150 truck, and that moment really took away a lot of things for me. And one of those has been my hiking, backpacking, camping endeavors. For me, as I mentioned earlier, being in nature is a big part of who I am. It's an identity. So this loss was big, and it's been a very, very difficult struggle and journey to go through with the amount of rehab and the loss of my physical body and those outlets such as hiking and biking and backpacking, because those were things that I could lean on when other things in life were difficult. And those things are really what give me purpose. So this Patagonia trip, not only does it hold weight because it's Patagonia just in and of itself, but it is going to be a challenge for me. And I've always been an athlete. And I've always been the type of person who's been in the gym 5-6 days a week, and then I would go hike 13 miles on the weekend. Very, very active, mountain biking, cycling, backpacking, all the things. And so for the last 3 years, my activity level has been very, very, very minimal, almost next to nothing. So it's been a very big change for me. But finally, after 3 years of the struggle with, the depression and the PTSD and the anxiety, everything that comes along with an accident such as the one that I was involved with, I'm finally feeling this inner flame kind of being reignited. And a part of Patagonia is to help with that motivation and really driving me to regain my life. I have a team of several highly qualified and respected individuals that I've been working with, ranging from doctors to physical therapists and somatic therapists and exercise physiologists and psychologists and acupuncturists, and myself with my individual background as an exercise physiologist and corrective and functional movement specialist for the last 3 years have been working around the clock 2 to 4 times a week just to really manage the pain and get me back to a place where I can regain some of that strength and endurance that I lost since this accident and allow myself to engage in these activities again and the things that I love to do and enjoy so much. So Patagonia, I have been wanting to get there for 10 years, and I understand that this is a very, very big trip, and I run the risk of my body not being physically capable of doing this. So I know that I'm going to have to be mentally tough. So I am going to try to remain hopeful that I can make this happen. And I plan to continue to put in the hard work to be able to achieve this very lofty goal that I have set forth for myself.
I appreciate your vulnerability in sharing that long and difficult journey that you've been on since the accident. And I have a feeling that Patagonia is going to share its beauty and magic and help in the healing process. Now, that was it for the regular questions. This last section of the podcast, Krista, are the this and that questions. Going to give you 10 hiking-related topics, and you just choose which one you prefer out of the two. The first one is, do you prefer a steep incline or a steep decline?
I would have to say incline. I've got some knees that have been through some stuff, so the decline's a little tough.
And then this one's a tough one. But waterfalls or summits?
Waterfalls. I'm a water chaser.
And then this one's about trail systems. Do you prefer a trail that has a bunch of switchbacks, or would you rather just go straight up if there was a straight up trail?
I'd say it depends on the day.
And this one, when you're out hiking, do you use trek poles or are you more freehand?
Trek poles. Not ashamed of it.
And then for your footwear, do you prefer trail runners or hiking boots?
Hiking boots. The feet have taken me many miles, so I've got to protect them.
And then another trail system question. Do you prefer a loop trail or an out and back trail?
Loop.
And then when it comes to carrying your water, do you prefer carrying a regular water bottle like an Nalgene or Hydro Flask? Or do you prefer a hydration pack like a Camelback?
Camelback, yeah. Just more easily accessible.
Now these next two are our toughest, but I think I might know the answer for this one. Sunset hikes or sunrise hikes?
Sunrise. There's sunrise something about being up before everybody else and that stillness and just it's quiet. It's very quiet.
Now, Colorado is known for both of these, but spring wildflowers or fall colors?
I would probably say spring wildflowers. Just new growth, and it means that my favorite season is right around the corner.
And now for the final one, when it comes to your hikes, do you prefer a long, gradual hike or a short and steep one?
Long and gradual.
And that was it for the this or that questions, Krista. For folks that haven't had a chance to follow you on Instagram, can you share your social media handles one more time?
My personal account is Furch. My business account is Roots Wellness LLC. And then my woodworking account is Furch KR_Aesthete Arts. And I'll put those in the notes just so people know how to spell them.
Right on, Krista. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I had a real fun time chatting with you and look forward to what 2024 has to offer for you.
Yeah, thanks, Ivan. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I appreciate it.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Krista. We extend a heartfelt thanks to them for coming on the podcast. Make sure to stay connected and follow them on Instagram at FOERTCHKR. Don't forget to check out the episode show notes to learn more about Krista's businesses mentioned in the episode. We have an incredible lineup of episodes planned throughout the spring months, and we can't wait to share them with you. New episodes will be dropping every Monday with occasional bonus episodes on Fridays. To ensure you never miss out on those thrilling tales, remember to hit that like and subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to join our vibrant community on Instagram at Hikes and Mics. We'll be sharing episode visuals, my own personal hiking content, and so much more. Let's stay connected and continue to inspire each other on this remarkable journey. As we bid farewell, remember to tread those happy trails, embrace the great outdoors, and keep the spirit of adventure alive. Until next time, my fellow explorers, happy hiking. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Flip Socks. Whether you're on the trail, on the job, or in the yard, Flip Socks will keep Mother Nature out of your boots with their innovative nylon sleeve. You no longer need to worry about any annoying debris getting trapped in your boots during your hikes. Simply flip down the nylon sleeve over any boot to prevent Mother Nature from finding its way inside, keeping your feet comfortable all day long. To get your first pair, visit flipsockswithaz.com and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for listeners who use the promo code at checkout, I'll be donating 100% of the Season 2 promo code proceeds to Big City Mountaineers, who provide transformative experiences through connections to nature that strengthen life skills and build community for youth and disinvested communities across the nation. So if you're tired of bits and pieces of the trail finding its way into your hiking boots, pick up a pair of Flip Socks today with the promo code HikesMikes10 to get 10% off. For website and promo code, see the episode description.